So we told him what to do, and he went out and he did it. You'll be surprised what happens next. Didn't quite go as smoothly as you'd expect. Welcome, guys. Midswatch, another episode. If you remember, I think it would have been about 2 or 3 episodes ago, depending on what order I released these things. There was the guy snowed in, something like that. When I was always confused about the words. Anyway, had a horribly anxious, avoidant wife, freaking out, white blood on his shirt, horrible mess. He's back, probably a couple weeks later, worked on what we told him. Agree and amplify, fogging, negative inquiry, negative assertion. And here's the results. First steps. As you can expect, it never goes solid the first time, but that's fine. This is a process that I kind of wanted to get across here. Not so much about the details of the field report, but about the concept of calibration. You may have noticed, if you ever read When I Say No, I Feel Guilty by Manuel Smith, but it's in one of the assertive Bill of Rights. You're allowed to make mistakes and accept the consequences for them. You're allowed to want something, even if it's irrational. And in this case, yeah, you're allowed to screw up something and own it. And that's fine. Again, a small fight's not going to ruin your marriage. Worst case scenario, you learn what not to do and you don't repeat it the next time. So the title of his post is what his wife said to him on Saturday afternoon, and then she left, presumably to go buy some actual boxes. And he's like, yeah, and she did. The title, by the way, is You're moving out in a week? Clear. Okay, well, we're moving out tomorrow, or you're moving out tomorrow. I'm going to get some boxes and make it clear. So he started reading When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. He's been fogging with some success until last night. Got home on Friday, long week. When he arrived, she was taking a shower. She finished. Wanted to hang out in bed and talk, even though it's Friday and we had plans to go to the gym. I realize now that my first mistake wasn't indulging her. It was indulging her for so long. It's like 30 minutes of just cuddling in bed when he wanted to go to the gym. So instead, bed, talking. Like your wives, mine decompresses by verbally spewing after the day is over. And eventually, during the conversation, she began to sour. She admitted her attitude change was because my face had the look of being in pain due to annoyance with talking to her. I did my best to avoid explaining myself, although I did a little and started fogging. 2 things here, by the way, before we move on. He actually has the right idea. There's actually a common red-pilled strategy on this when you have one of those girls that needs to vent about her day and complain about everything to get it out of her system, is just to put boundaries on it. I think the example I used to use is my girl and I, we used to both work downtown. We'd walk back home. We'd meet up with each other, walk back. And I just said, from when I leave my work to when we walk into our house, you can say whatever you want to, bitch about whatever. But once we're in here, I don't want to hear it anymore. And just putting that small boundary on it makes it so you don't have that look of consternation, which just, pisses off the wife and sets her going. And definitely don't explain yourself, but that should go without saying. Anyways, he stopped the exchange of complaining and fogging, gets to go to the gym, got dressed, realized he had almost missed, he's going to miss it before they close. So he just stayed home. He sat down away from his wife to do some reading. She cooled off for 20 minutes. And then he's like, hey, how's it going? He's still good. Things seem to improve. 15 minutes, reading a website together, laughing, joking, talking about the future. I mean, so far it seems pretty straightforward, right? But there's little mistakes in there which kind of matter. And then early in the week, he called his wife during the workday to invite her on a date. She was thrilled. That was supposed to be the Saturday. This is Friday. And he'd let her know, just so you know, I have to work Saturday morning. So, I'm going to be home in time, but it'll be a bit. And then she's pissed again because the earlier issue about the pained face, not adequately addressed, stuff like this. He said, oh, don't forget the date though, Saturday. She's like, well, maybe. It was like a gut punch, but he didn't show it, which, again, covert contract. If I set up this date and I hold frame, then she'll love me forever and I'll have a problem-free life. So when she says, well, maybe I don't want to go. And of course, that's going to affect him. That's breaking the covert contract. She was pleasant when he got home. But she was just shouting it from another room. She never came to see him, which is what she usually does. So he came in, hugged her. Again, everything was really nice. Walked away, had a test, so I did. He likes to ramble, so I'm trying to save you guys from the pain of this one. So after the test, we're driving home. He asked, what would you like to do? He's like, that was a mistake. I should have done something. Her response was harsh tones. Resolve the things from last night. Imagine that. So inside her home, he asked if she wanted some water. She was going to get some for himself. And she's like, I told you what I want. I'll tell you. Things were going just great. Again, there's no point bringing up old fights either. It's another red-pilled strategy as we're going through this nonsense. The arguments are for like building emotions. Better or for worse. Mostly worse. Especially when they lead the charge. So by bringing them up at a later date, all you're doing is re-bringing up those old emotions when it's not really solving anything. There's nothing to solve. This problem's only feelings. So why would you address them? This is why I always say the good red-pilled strategy is to have the memory of a goldfish. We had a fight yesterday. I don't remember. The only acceptable answer. Okay, so back to this one. He keeps going through the details of the fight. Again, you always notice this passive-aggressive dance, just hoping she doesn't blow up. She accuses him of fucking with her. She was putting on shoes and a jacket to leave. She kept telling me to go do something. I'm trying to leave. Back and forth. Asked again if she wanted to talk about the face comment, attempting to prompt her to explain why the issue was so she could address it, or so he could address it. He says, and yeah, so basically she's like not telling him what the problem is, and he has to suss it out of her, and she's liking that attention on here. It's a fucking nonsense thing. I really don't want it. I'm really regretting reading this field report, but luckily this isn't the important part. So she left, made some more mention about being done with the marriage, gets some peace and quiet. He decides to take a nap, and he wakes up when she slams the door. He didn't know how much time had passed. She enters the bedroom, begins making demands, like actual demands. At no point does she realize that being sweet might get her somewhere. It lasted about 3 minutes before she said, you know, you're moving out. I'm going to go get boxes so you can be out of here in a week. If you won't start packing when I get back, I'll pack your shit and have it out tomorrow. She's like, I think I'm just going to move out on a trial basis. We had a therapy session last week. It's our first. I've continued to improve, but her tantrums and lack of respect remain. Dread increase is necessary. Okay. A couple things before I get to the calibration part of this. One, the couples therapy. Usually a waste of time. Individual therapy for girls, maybe. Psychology is kind of geared towards more for the feminine mind anyway. 2, don't leave the marital home, at least without speaking to your lawyer, because what I've seen in most jurisdictions when they talk about that, it's seen as familial abandonment, and it does you no favors if divorces actually come. So yeah, do not leave your home. But again, and then like just because things are difficult, don't decide to just go with the flow to make the pain go away. So having said that, we get back to Jack. It's like, hey, it's me again. So you may not be doing a very good job of fogging, which is fine. This is one of the toughest skills to master. It's like way harder than agree and amplify. And it sounds like you've just started to read When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. The key to fogging is it allows you to project empathy without actually apologizing or enduring the burden of her emotions. Everything I'm reading about your wife sounds like a woman who's pissed off about something and is frustrated her husband seemingly has no empathy. Now, it's not your job to take responsibility for her emotions, but she is looking for you to be the oak, and your actions describe you doing everything but that. The example he uses, she's getting sour. He admitted he looked like he was in pain when she was talking about her day. Which he kind of was, but he tried fogging it out and it didn't really work too well. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. Then when he realized he couldn't go to the gym because it was almost going to close, she thought he was butthurt sitting there in his gym gear, not at the gym. So Jack's like, my read on this is that you were looking forward to coming home and going to the gym with her. Instead, you see her just lying in bed, eager to talk about some boring minutiae. Now, instead of just going to the gym by yourself, you hung around, talked about the boring minutiae, got annoyed, since it is, after all, boring.
Ian, not Ryan Stone. I think he's the most important guy in the world. Ryan Stone. Give a fuck about Ryan Stone. Me and him have gone back and forth. Blah, blah, blah. Ryan Stone does not pass the 6-foot test. He's not even a man. So I don't give a fuck with Ryan Stone.
She picked up on your annoyance and she used it to attack you. So let me fix that for you. Eventually, she started being sour. I said I was going to the gym and she was free to join me like we planned. She started to sulk, so I went off on my own. She was still in a bad mood when I got back, as expected, so then I started to fog. I suspect that her bad mood is because of, an insecurity over his increasing SMV, or lack of time spent together, or something that has nothing to do with me. And then said something that acknowledges her emotions without taking responsibility or apologizing for them. He's like, that would be fogging, and that would be a good field report. And then the next day he's like, yeah, and she's still bothered by last night's exchange. That's why she brought up the whole, you want to talk about yesterday? You know, wouldn't that be amazing? She's even more bothered that you don't seem bothered at all by it. So her pleasantness was her way of saying, I'm going to give him a chance to show that he's bothered for this. Then I know he's not oblivious to how I feel. So clearly she has a covert contract going on today, and her hamster was in overdrive. But you know your wife better than us. Did this really catch you off guard? And based on everything you've said about your wife previously, you have to know that she's not going to say, when I'm boring, I need you to pretend that I'm not boring because I'm too insecure to accept that my conversation is not always 100% interesting. So responding to a hamstering woman, you're the one that thinks you're fighting. I'm the one that's calm and rising above this stupid conflict and just wants you to have a normal discussion with me is not being her oak. The beauty of the oak is it lets you stand against the person berating or beating against you, but then also lets you envelop them in a way that you're calming and comforting in like a cocoon. Not only does this stop them beating on you, but they realize the futility of doing so. And this is where I'm going to interject a bit about frame, where a lot of guys think frame is what you do. Like, I held frame here. I tried to hold frame as best I can. And One More Please quoted this the best. Frame is not what you do, it's who you are. So if this guy had frame, none of these fights would work. Because he's just not going to get mad. He's not going to explain himself. He's going to do his thing. Being the oak is where fogging comes in. She likes empathy. Chicks dig empathy. They like to know you're on the same wavelength, or they mostly like to know that their emotions are being, listened to. So yeah, is a little bit of work on your end, sure, but I mean, we're always talking about what does a girl bring to the marriage. At some point, you're going to have to perform for her too, and I know girls bring up that emotional labor, and it's such a nonsense term. It really is, and it's mostly just a weapon to fight against guys who they can't explain why they don't feel good for them. But in this case, crazier, histrionic wife, yeah. The idea of wanting to feel empathy towards him would go a long way towards de-escalating these situations before they get worse. Now, is this a question of she's crazy and he needs to leave? Is it a situation of he has no ability to manage a relationship, and so any girl he's with would eventually start to screw up like this? I don't know. But the best thing you can do is make it so you can at least narrow down whose fault it is by sorting all of your shit out in the first place. You don't have to deal with any bullshit. You're not going to get into a fight over it. You're going to enforce your boundaries properly. You're going to use fogging properly, negative inquiry, negative assertions, agree and amplify, when to use it, where to use it. You're good and calibrated. And then you've got your shit together. You're top tier. You're emotionally, hot, for lack of a better term. And she's still being crazy. So you're like, all right, hit the bricks. Okay, so I would suspect you're kind of enjoying seeing your wife worked up like this. It's back to Jack. And you get to act like the superior and calm, logical, rational man. And that can be especially gratifying since it sounds like your pre-red pill arguments used to send you into fits of stress, despair, and agony. But realize, if you're taking enjoyment out of this, what you're essentially doing is using your wife as a source of Schadenfreude, if I'm pronouncing that right. I was never good with the German. Does she deserve it after putting you through the emotional ringer so often? Probably. Is this the most constructive way to actually salvage your marriage? Not a chance. So sometimes we conclude the marriage and my wife herself is just a net negative in my life, and that's okay. So my only suggestion is that if you do move out, own it. Don't move out because you think it'll make her more upset than you. That's stupid. Move out because you think that's the best path forward in your life, and if that's the case, I would strongly suggest not moving out before talking to a lawyer. You can't make that decision on your best path forward without knowing all the consequences, and moving out is a path towards divorce, and we all know divorce is rarely without consequences. So otherwise, just keep on fogging. Fog like your marriage depends on it, because it probably does. Usually, women like your wife have one hardcore condition. I need you to feel like you know how I feel. And I have to imagine you're pretty keen on your wife's moods. Your previous response was to do anything to placate that mood. Clearly, that's bad. But it may still be possible to address or acknowledge said moods while maintaining boundaries and not apologizing for anything. Add a couple more of my thoughts on this one. The part that I like it is because you guys hear the terms. We've talked about it before. Mental point of origin, Don't apologize for anything. And this stuff sounds good. You're like, I'm an alpha male. I can... Don't apologize for shit. Fuck it. But then you realize, like, this is where it applies when we're talking about in the weeds. Yeah, not apologizing for anything means if your wife is mad that you're not more empathetic and she attacks you for it, you don't apologize for that. There's nothing you've done wrong. But at the same time, if she's generally speaking a net positive to your life, why wouldn't you get better at, empathy, lack of a better word? You're not doing it because she wants you to do that or she's going to freak out. You're not doing that way. You're doing it because this is sexual dynamics. You want to be hot. Everybody wants to be hot. Guys want to be the best guy they can be. And there's two parts to that. There's, be attractive and don't be unattractive. Being attractive is easy. That's why everybody loves that. Yeah, work out, look hot, nice hair, dress well, smell nice. But then there's the don't be unattractive part. Don't be autistic. Don't escalate things. Don't use your wife as a punching bag to get revenge and all those other times. Be the oak, shit like that. And those are, doesn't matter who you're talking to. Both of those ideas are going to be controversial. The idea that you're getting good at these tools for people, especially like emotional people like this, like take her 12 out of 10 example out of it. Talk about a normal 5 out of 10 level of emotions in a girl. A lot of guys will be like, oh, you can't be like empathic with her. That's ridiculous. You don't want to show your feelings. Like, you're not showing your feelings. You're showing that you're good, you're adept at managing a girl's feelings. You don't have to do it, but you want to do it. Why? Because everything else she does to your life, you're like, dude, this is all I have to do to keep her happy? Fuck, why not? I get 8 blowjobs a week. Why wouldn't I? And then on the other side of things, you get girls talking about, it's not enough emotional labor. And this actually, there's another comment in Jack that comes in after, which kind of explains where I'm going with this one. Somebody else was bringing up some hypotheticals and whatever. But the point is, and he's like, yeah, if you legitimately made a mistake, own it. Unfortunately, some women will hamster that mistake into an egregious disregard for their feelings, which is where this stuff is coming from. Did you remember to buy some milk on the way home? Ah, crap, I forgot. Now, that's all the hamster needs to have a screaming match that you're not listening to her, you don't care about her, and you're horrible. Your fogging approach depends on whether her hamster is driven by a general level of stress or anxiety or is specific to you. She may be anxious about somebody professionally and has a general feeling like nobody is listening to me. And then when you walk in the door as well, you forgot the milk, it's another example, and she flies off the case. So if it's that the case, then your fogging needs to show empathy that you recognize she's under a lot of stress and that it's scary feeling like nobody is talking to you. And then the next day, just get milk, like whatever. If it's specific to you, then you may have just let her hamster run. You just let it do what you do. Let her burn herself out. Go to the gym. And it sounds like you think forgetting the milk means I don't listen to you, which is probably why you're upset. Like, I get that. And that alone will probably get her to exasperatedly yell, yes. But at least for now, she feels like you get it. Now, that could be enough to calm her down. But otherwise, if she's insistent this is all part of the problem of you not giving a shit, then you may just have to remove yourself from the situation until she calms the fuck down. Your boundary is that you'll apologize for not getting the milk because you did forget the milk. You won't apologize for neglecting her feelings because you didn't do that. Now, as for the texts, don't read text. Ignore them as soon as things go south. If it looks like something is going to get lost in translation over text, it probably will. And again, from my personal experience, texting is for logistics only. Never have a fight over text. Never solve a fight over text. It doesn't get better. If it's important, it's face-to-face important. So closing thoughts on this one, I will say, and a lot of guys hate these because they're like, I don't want to be in this horrible situation. I want to be the alpha male that chicks want and guys want to be. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. Everybody wants that. But a lot of you guys will end up in situations eventually where you're in some suboptimal situation, usually because you ignored something for too long and now you have to deal with it. And that's why you're here. And that sounds like, oh, I don't want to simp for my wife. You're not simping for your wife. You've neglected the ability to handle conflict or intergender relations for a long enough time that you have to sit here and learn how to deal with a completely freaked out wife arguing about whatever, possibly killing your marriage because there's some fundamental skills you got to get good at again. And the one thing that he's learning here is that things will get worse before they get better. Because at least the original way when he was having these fights and he was placating her, it was stable. So it's consistent, and people like consistency. They like patterns. Once he starts asserting his boundaries and learning these flogging skills, it changes the script. People don't like that. So the fights get worse temporarily because they want things to go back to the way they were, even though the new way is going to be way better. So you have to stick with the program. You have to be more consistent. And that's the funny thing. When you first start doing these tests and fixing these problems, they're probably the worst they're ever going to be. Once you get good at them, they just stop testing you. And that's that's why a lot of guys will tell you, like, dude, you shouldn't have to do this. And he's right, you shouldn't. And once you're able to deal with it, you won't have to. So take from that what you will. Worst case scenario, you can take these 12 out of 10 hysterical wife things and apply them to your 4 out of 10 somewhat emotional girl whenever her mother calls. And then you can have some fun with it because it won't nearly be as serious as this. And you can learn these skills now before that 4 out of 10 escalation turns into a 12 out of 10 field report that we got to sit here telling you more about Glover stuff. So I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.